Hello everyone, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I am here to give you my thoughts on the recent announcement of the Captain Marvel 2 director, Nia DaCosta. Nia DaCosta is a relatively fresh face in the in the filming business. She's a relatively fresh director, which is not new for the MCU to get fresher directors, to get younger, up-and-coming directors. It's just the way they do the system. And, the reason that most of the MCU's directors are up-and-coming young directors is because, for the most part, the MCU has a direction they want to go in. And most of the bigger directors have whether it's ego or vision, they have the way they see things going, and the MCU has the way they see things, the way they want things to go. And usually those things end up battling, and they can't, keep a director. That's why Edgar Wright left. That is about 50% of the reason Patty Jenkins left. The other 50% was racist shit from Ike Perlmutter, but the other 50% was she wanted her just to be her, vision. That's why there's so many other directors. I think her name is Devré Renew, the woman who directed Selma and Wrinkle in Time. I can never say her name correctly, but you also get to be fair, lately in the later years, the MCU has given their directors a little bit more leash. And the way the MCU, does it is, at least from my perspective, from what I've gathered from watching all the movies and watching behind the scenes stuff and seeing interviews and seeing all these different things and, seeing multiple, big sites talk about it. From what I gather, the way the MCU works is it's 70% it's 70% the director and the writers, and there's 25% in the MCU. There's 25% of you have to hit this beat, and this beat, and you have to end here. How you get there is up to you. How the characters feel when they get there is up to you. How the characters' relationships are up to you. It doesn't, as long as you introduce this, as long as you hit this, and as long as you end here, or at least in the same ballpark as here, we're good. You can do whatever you want within that confines of the PG-13 rating, and nothing too extreme, but you can get a little wacky with it and go any direction, and bring up any dramatic topic or whatever you want to be as in the wacky tone of Thor Ragnarok, the wackier tone, and the dry, the weird kind of humor of Thor Ragnarok, or via the political slash racial, speaking of on racial injustice that was in Black Panther. You can hit those beats, you can do those things, but you got to give us what we need to. And that's kind of how the MCU works. And if you can work within the system, you can get your voice out, and they can get what they need, and they can get their points too. But that's kind of how the MCU works. It's why I've always said that the DCEU never really would work, and why it's not going to work now is because they're just giving all the directors full power, which is great for a movie or a trilogy. It's a terrible idea to build a cinematic universe because it's rogue. So I just wanted to kind of go down that line because I see a lot of people already going, who is this Nia DaCosta woman? First of all, she will be the first African American woman to ever direct a major comic book film, so that's for one. And secondly, she is also the director of the upcoming Candy Man Reboot, and that trailer looked amazing for the Candy Man Reboot. It's being produced by Jordan Peele, so Jordan Peele selected her, so that really means a lot. The fact that Jordan Peele picked this woman to direct this Candy Man Reboot instead of doing it himself says a lot about how much he must like her. She's also directed a movie called Little Woods that I have not seen, but it stars Tessa Thompson in it, so there are many people out there speculating that Tessa Thompson might have actually suggested her to Kevin Feige and said maybe you should meet with her. Maybe she would like to do this. And, maybe she did. Like, there's all multiple suggestions. Like that, I was reading the other day that there are suggestions that Kevin, like the whole reason that goddamn Peyton Reed might have got Ant-Man was because James Gunn suggested him, and like there's multiple things. The reason that this the guy doing Shang-Chi, Justin Daniel Creighton, is doing Shang-Chi is because Brie Larson suggested him. Like, and there's a lot of like things like that of actors who working in the MCU have worked on other things and being like, this guy's pretty good for this, and that's always good. That's always good. You mean Ryan Coogler brought Michael B. Jordan with him. That's always great to get that going. But Yeah, so there's little known about her, but when I looked on Rotten Tomatoes and saw the score for Little Woods, it has a 95%. It is a critical darling. I mean, this thing is a festival darling. Apparently, it's a kind of an outlaw movie about these two women, like a modern day outlaw movie about these two women on the run doing something. Kind of like a Hell or Higher Water with Chris Pratt, but not Chris Pratt, Chris Pine. Kind of like Hell or High Water with Chris Pine, only with women, I suppose. Like I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really know. But I've heard nothing but fantastic things about it. I've heard nothing but really great things about it. I heard it's a really great indie movie, and it showed off her style. But we really won't know how good she's gonna be. Candyman has a lot more eyes on it than ever before now. The same thing happened when John Watts got the Spider-Man gig, and we had no clue who John Watts was. And then like I looked up the movie Cop Car, the cop car. That was it. It was just like Cop Car. And like that was the only. It was a cop car, and there was this horror movie too about this clown that John Watts had done, and it was just weird. But like everyone said the same thing. They were like, "Oh, we know why John Watts got this because the movie Cop Cars are singled around these kids," and it was like, okay, he got this because they loved how his handling of kids in stressful situations, and that's why he got this. Because generally speaking, that's what the directors for a Marvel movie are here to do. You are here to worry about the characters, You're here to bring the best out of the actors and worry about the character stuff, the action stuff, the bigger mechanism of the thing. Don't worry about that. The action. You can get in the room, you can put some, you can go, we kind of want to do this, and we'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll do that. But generally speaking, the action and the bigger mechanism, that is above your pay grade. Well, not above your pay grade, it's just like, it's bigger than you. It's like, you can get involved in it, but you can't get involved in it because like the MCU does, like, there are certain things that are introduced by individual directors that carry through. For instance, James Gunn had this weird thing that he wrote for Rocket. The Rocket likes to take body parts, like cybernetic and prosthetics for some reason, and that carried through from Infinity War to Endgame in a movie that James Gunn wasn't directly, he was involved in it, but he wasn't directing it or writing it. So like that's kind of great, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff you can just carry through. Korg and Meek being the way they are, carry through. Different things just carry through from films. But, it's because it was already talked about and it was laid out and it was like, okay, we understand where you are. And, like, that's the MCU, man. It's a team effort. And that's why you can't really get so many big people. Now, some people would say, oh, well, they got Sam Raimi. But Sam Raimi isn't, as big as Sam Raimi is, as big of a legend as he is, especially in the horror community, especially for directing the original 3 Spider-Man movies. He is a studio man. Like, he has ideas of his own. Clearly, I mean, he had different ideas for how Spider-Man 3 was supposed to go, and it did not go his way because of the studio. But he's a studio man. He's worked with Disney before. He worked on Oz the Great and Powerful. That was a Sam Raimi movie. So, and not only that, he's worked with Kevin Feige before. So Sam Raimi is not he's not opposed to working within the system. There's a reason like that you'll never see like a Spielberg or something come in the MCU. It's just they're just too big and they just have too big of ideas and they would want to just go completely their own direction and they can't do that. And like some people, I feel like some people have a hard time wrapping their minds around that. Some like that you can't do a cinematic universe letting people go rogue. It just won't work that way. That's how you end up with Aquaman needing an air bubble in one movie to talk underwater and them establishing that they need air bubbles. They can't talk underwater without air bubbles. And then when the Aquaman movie comes out, not only does the sea look different, not only does the ocean look different, not only does everyone's armor look different, completely different, but freaking they don't even need air bubbles to talk underwater, and none of the crap that's in Aquaman was even remotely mentioned in the Justice League. That's what you end up with. And that would have happened regardless of whoever cut it was. And some people are like, oh, well, maybe that was just a cut. No, that's what it was going to be like. It was going to be a completely 2 different takes on same character in the same universe. And, like, that's how you end up with just chaos. That's how you end up with, like, James Gunn saying that, oh, well, this technically, the Avengers, James Gunn saying one thing about how something works, and then them saying another thing about how something works. You know what I mean? That's how you end up with like contradictions out the wazoo, and the universe falls apart, and it just starts becoming, why even keep it together? They don't even make sense together anymore, and that's why the MCU has lasted as long as it has, because they do have a stranglehold, they do have a big vision, and they do bring in people who can work in as who can work, who want to be a part of the team. You know, and yeah, some people go, "Oh, well, this is movie by committee." You can't do this cinematic universe any way else. There's no way else to do it, other than there's no way else to do this. So I'm hoping for good things from her. The fact that Kevin Feige rarely misses on directors, and she's gotten good talk reviews from, and she got selected by, obviously, Jordan Peele to do the Candyman movie. The Candyman movie looks good. I'm hoping that she's a great director. I'm looking forward to this. Captain Marvel 2 is happening, sons of bitches. I know you got some people who are like, well, I don't know, it might not. No. You make a sequel to a $12 billion movie. Thank you guys for joining my Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.